Hi, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, I have as my special guest Tom Borg of Tom Borg Consulting. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Tara. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really great to talk to you again, and I know we've had you on before to talk about corporate topics, corporate related topics. And today we're going to be talking about the world of job profiling, which is really, really important right now. So, before we dive into job profiling and what it's all about and how it's so important to today's companies, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and who you work with right now?
Well, I got my start in training and development about 25 plus years ago with a company called Dale Carnegie. From there, I graduated to doing more business consulting on my own and eventually just did that completely on my own. So I've been doing that for about the last 20 plus years. I work with a lot of small and mid-sized companies, and essentially I work with them at the intersection of leadership, communication, and culture. So essentially, what I do is I help them solve their people problems, build the trust within the organization, and help them grow their ability to service their clients better.
And as we know, those topics that you mentioned are so important today and probably more than ever because of things and how they're changing in today's work world. So, today we're going to be talking about job profiling. And before we dive into the topic, why don't you make sure we have a really solid definition of what that means?
So, job profiling has also been referred to as job benchmarking. So, essentially, what we're doing is we're taking a job, measuring what needs to be in that job in terms of the skill sets and qualities of a human being, and then matching those skill sets and qualities to the candidates that the company would interview for that position.
Yeah, and I really want to definitely unpack that because we know how many times they do say that a job is going to entail X, Y, and Z, and then when you get there, your manager completely changes the game on you. So
Mm,
um,
that's a problem.
it's really, really important to make sure that's solid. But so why don't we talk first about the process of like how job profiling helps with recruiting and selecting the best candidates to consider.
Yes. So oftentimes what happens is when a company is looking to fill a position, there are certain people that are involved in that hiring process. And sometimes it's the owner of the company. What happens sometimes is they will try to find someone that's just like that owner. In other words, the owner looking to hire a person who he feels is ideal sometimes doesn't realize that they're simply looking for another protege, so to speak. So what we want to do is help avoid that from happening, help prevent that from happening. The way we do that is to take the job apart and, like we mentioned earlier, what are the qualities, what are the skill sets that that job requires in a human being, and then to take those and put them into a measurement tool, an actual assessment, so that when you have certain candidates that you've identified that you like to interview for the position, you also have them fill out this assessment, which is going to measure their how close they match the requirements of the job in terms of qualities and of course skill sets.
So is this something that you would do and give to them like pre-interview or at the actual interview?
Well, usually it's a series of interviews that they're having with a
Okay.
potential person they're looking to hire. So we would say early on, we'd want to have that assessment completed. So once they've identified, say, three or four people who they feel are pretty good candidates, and they want to take them through that interviewing process, which may be three or four or five, six interviews, it should be early on in that interviewing process, probably no more than second or third interview. We should be doing a profile on them.
So this kind of gets back to the issue about these are kind of skills that we need for the job versus the other softer skills. And what do you think about that? Because some people don't really want to necessarily hire for the skills for the job. I mean, certain things you need, right? They're
Hmm.
table stakes to actually do the job. If you're hiring for an accounting position, they need to have some sort of background. But those softer skills are sometimes the thing that's really the magic because if they can't get along with people, if they're just not a fit for the team. It really sometimes doesn't matter what those other skills are, that the hard skills.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Tara, the report will actually we wanna measure for both. We wanna measure
Okay.
for soft skills and the job skills, hard skills. So and you can do that.
Are they doing this though through is it through a response? Like, are they writing out responses or these are interview questions? Is this more
Interview
of in the interactive
It's
interview?
more of a response. What let's say, for instance, here's how it works. So you get, say, a team of people together that know the job very well. You don't want too
Right,
many people because
right,
then there's too many conflicting views. But you'll get a person, say, who's one of your star performers that is already in a position like that, right?
right,
You get that person in the room. Then you'll talk to the, say, maybe the HR person or other people that are involved, people that will interact with that
right,
position, right? So
right.
we get a good holistic view of what are all the qualities that this person needs to have from this
I
person's
see.
perspective, that person's perspective. So we get agreement. That's important. And that's why you don't want too many people because it's hard to get that narrowed down. But you get agreement, and then we put together a questionnaire that will take those qualities and skill sets and uh, put them into a framework where when a person goes through the assessment questionnaire, they'll be answering like most like or least like type questions to whatever the question's about, but they'll be answering with the response most like or least like. So it helps them narrow it down.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So so that's kind of some of the I know you kind of touched on some of the things that they're doing to create an effective job profile, but are there any other best practices that you would like to add to that?
Well,
Um,
yes, so certainly, when you start asking questions about this profile, we can make it any way they want it. But the
mhm,
key is, we'll find out like what are the things the person must have for the position. What are some
right.
of the things that you don't want this person to have, right? The must-haves, the should-haves, and you don't want to haves in an
What are some
individual.
like not wanna haves?
Well, let's say, for instance, well, right off the bat, let's say a person, if the job requires that they report to an office, that they have to be within a reasonable driving distance, right?
I
So
see.
that might be a
Yeah,
must-have. Maybe another is a certain amount of experience in the field that they're looking to be hired into. So many years of experience, or maybe they have to have so many certifications maybe it's a software position they're hiring for. So they need to know they need to know certain things that are going to help them fulfill the requirements of the job.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, these kinds of is profiling done in I mean consciously in companies? I mean, who's doing this? I don't know if this was ever done at any of the companies I was at. Is this something that's more popular today than it was, or where do you see this on the spectrum in terms of what companies are doing? How much are they doing this?
A lot, a lot,
Mhm.
because it's very expensive to hire, right? You hire a person, and if they don't work out, it's typically, and you hear the ranges depending on the level of the position, but anywhere between 2.5 to 6 times what it costs to pay that person for 1 year salary. That's what it costs to replace them. So it's very important that companies do that up front ahead of time so they're not spending a lot of money. Now, this is the kind of money that you don't see in the bottom line so much. It just kind of seeps out like you got holes in a barrel. It's shooting out the
Yeah.
sides of the barrel. So, yeah. Now, I'll tell you who else uses it a lot, recruiters. Recruiters.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
They're being paid large amounts of compensation to find the right person. So they're going to use these types of tools an awful
Yeah,
lot.
because they have a limited amount of time and they've gotta have candidates that hit.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because if you're turning in people for them to interview that are wasting their time, that's super expensive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to take a step back a little bit because I've been seeing a lot about this because of, my involvement kind of in the career world up to a point. And you had mentioned something about multiple interviews, like 3, 6 interviews. And I've been seeing more and more of this. And What's going on in with some of these companies nowadays? These, half dozen interviews, they can't make a decision. Some people talking to the CEO like 3 times. I mean, and I know this from a friend who's high up, and what he's gone through, it's ridiculous. What's with all the extra interviews? I mean, what's with the situation where they can't make a decision?
Well, it might be part that they can't make a decision, but it's also it's just a good rule of thumb to interview a person several times, at least 3 or 4 times. And here's some of the guidelines. You should interview them first, of course, by with a phone. That's usually a great place to start. You kind of qualify them. And then to bring them in, you might meet with them in the morning, first thing, right? So you kind of get an idea, is this person a good morning person or not? Then you want to meet them off-site. You The idea is you start to get to know the person when you're able to see them in different locations or in different times of the day. This way, see, anybody can give a great first impression, right? That first interview, they can knock it right out of the park. But if it's a second, third, or fourth interview and it's different times of day, different locations, under different circumstances, and of course, you'll have maybe a team of people interviewing the person at the same time, or maybe individually, a person would be interviewed. But you have all these different opportunities to get to know the person and to see what they're really like. That's important.
Yeah, I wasn't, I was just kind of surprised at how many interviews people are having. And unfortunately, a lot of them that I'm hearing about, especially for the upper tier positions, people are being grilled and asked to respond to corporate issues. Basically, they're picking their brain for free to solve
Mm,
company
mm,
things. It's getting pretty bad out there for some folks, and they're going along with it because they're thinking they're going to get a job, but they're really going through like the entire department and having like 7 8 interviews so that they pretty much solve that business problem that that department has by the time they're done to the last interview, and then they don't get the job offer. I mean, I've heard this
hmm.
more than a few times from people.
Yeah, that would be
um,
unethical
it's
as far as I'm concerned.
becoming like, I don't know if it's a new thing or way for companies to solve their problems. I mean, even a friend of mine who was interviewing for high level director positions,
Hmm.
the assignments that he was given
Hmm.
were company problems, like do all the financials for this, give me an entire marketing plan for a year. I mean, these are things that take substantial amounts of time, you know,
Hmm.
10, 20 hours to do something,
Hmm.
to try to get a job and then you don't get it.
Hmm.
It's interesting what's going on right now. I
Tara,
think it's a red flag
as
and I would move on, but that's me. I don't do assignments.
absolutely, I agree with you. That's a red flag,
Yeah,
and organizations, as they're doing that out there, and I'm sure there are, then that's unethical as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, and a lot of it's going on, and the
Hmm.
assignments are coming from the CEOs. It's
Hmm.
it's,
Hmm.
new world of work, I guess. All right,
Mm.
well,
Mhm.
moving along with that, so what are some of the problems that that organizations are facing as they're, um, developing these job profiles? I mean, I know things move quickly, I mean, that probably
Mhm.
impacts it, but what's going on in terms of, it's very time intensive, it sounds like, to get people
Mhm.
together to put these job profiles together. So, what are some other challenges that they have when they're doing this?
Well, to answer your concern, it is not does not take a lot of time when done properly. You get the people together in a room. It might take maybe a couple of hours, the most, to get. You have to do some pre-planning and
Mhm.
get the ideas of the questions you want to ask. But you get the people together, uh, g- allow them to contribute, finalize the questions that are brought up, etc. And then actually it shouldn't take any long, a couple hours to get the assessment information that's necessary. Then we'll put that into a system and create the actual questionnaire. So the key is you just want to get the right people in the room. They're going to help you identify the right qualities and skill sets that you're looking for. That's the key.
So, are these things that you have facilitated at companies? Do you do this kind of work with companies?
Hmm.
You
Absolutely.
do. Okay. And when you're taking the data from these kinds of things, are there pre-made templates? Are there systems that are out there that are software systems that you're putting this information into, or is it something that they kind of whip up themselves?
No, well, the company I use is Target Training International.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
they're one of the top 20 in the world. So they have templates that are created, and then you just take the information, and give that to them, and they feed it into this software system they've got, and it just creates this assessment, customized
Oh, wow.
assessment
That's cool.
questionnaire. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Oh, that's super. I like that.
Yeah, and it's all
So,
scientifically validated.
yeah.
It's not just somebody thinking, well, maybe this will work. No, it's all based on mathematics.
So does it also, because it's fed into a system, does it have the ability to create graphs and other kinds of like visual tools that
Yes.
can see the results? Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. Yeah.
They're very valuable. These are very valuable instruments that can
Yeah.
definitely prevent the mishiring of a position based on human error. Let's put it that way.
And so if there's a slight change in the position, you can actually just feed select data back into that original template and get something
Hmm.
brand new, correct? Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
That's
Can be
fantastic.
adjusted. Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. So, what do you how does this impact overall, like employee retention rates? Is it something that's can you directly relate using these kinds of assessments with retention?
Absolutely. It's a wonderful question. And as you know, anytime a person you're interviewing says that's a wonderful question, it simply means they know the answer. So, what's nice about a tool like this is it forces your organization to take a good look at, okay, well, what do we want in this position? And then once we have a person like that, what are we going to need to do to develop that person and keep them around? So it really causes them to take a hard look at the job description, right? And then at the same time, the type of person they want to bring on board. But for that person, it's always important to have a career plan put in place, right? So when that person is hired, or before they're hired. It's part of the process. Say, listen, once you come on board with us, we're going to be able to have you on track to develop your career with us. And here are some of the things you'll be doing in the time that you're going to be employed with us.
Do you think that nowadays there is that career pathing being done? Or do people look at people as more replaceable? I mean, I know things have changed so much in the past, 15, 20 years.
Hmm.
Do you really feel like companies are looking at paths anymore, or do they just think like, I just need the resource now. We'll figure out everything else later. I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, I know there's a whole spectrum of companies out there,
Hmm.
but overall, I just feel like the things I see nowadays, it just feels like let's just plug the hole today and get that situation handled. I don't know. What are
Hmm.
you seeing?
You're right in the sense that there are a number of companies that are looking for people desperately, and they're trying to just plug those holes right now. Now, other companies are certainly going to be more uh, visionary. They're going to see down the road, and they're going to want to hire that person and see them as part of their long-term plan to build the organization. So I depends on the situation, but there's still a huge shortage of qualified people out there for top positions, middle positions, frontline positions. So it is true that a number of companies, and I hear this a lot from my clients, hard to find good people, very hard.
It's unbelievable, like how hard. I mean, there's just seems like there's so many people looking for jobs, even at the higher levels.
Hmm.
But the it seems like maybe they're skittish on the company side because it's the interview process is just so challenging. We have more tech than ever, but it's more challenging than ever. It's just all these interviews and just hoops and more hoops and
Hmm.
assignments and
Hmm.
doing this and doing that. I mean, they're making it so difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that's resulting in better hiring. And, how do you juxtapose this to the fact that people are very flighty now? I mean, they're just like they changing jobs all the time, or I don't feel like getting up and going to work today, or oh my gosh, I have to go back to the office. Forget it. I'm quitting.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's just I don't know how they balance all that. It's rough.
Hmm.
I you know.
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you this. There are a certain number of people out there that are pretty skittish. They're more sensitive than they might have been in years past. So they're a little harder to work with. However, I will tell you, there are some great people out there that are in the workplace. They they go the extra mile, they work
Yeah.
extra hard, they're really good. I mean, I see this. Now, one of the challenges I think for a lot of companies is that if you can't find someone like that, it's because they're not looking in the right places. These people are already employed someplace, right? They're good. That's why
Yeah.
they're employed. So you just have to have a better strategy, a better approach to finding and attracting the right kind of employees or leadership team members for your organization. Uh, that's just what it comes down to, having a better game plan.
Yeah, and I think the same, a lot of these problems also emanate from HR departments that aren't staffed with the right people because
Mhm.
so much of this is driven by that department too. You know,
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
get the directive, they got to go get everything set up, they got to put out the job, posting and this and that. Um,
Mhm.
so how does, that affect even the job posting and you know, they got to do the job profiling first, right? And then you got to go make the job posting. Um, and then that gets a little trickier too,
Yeah.
right?
Well, to answer your question, I think we'd go way, way, way back to the beginning. Let's first take a look at the job description, and then that's where we start. Then you bring, because there's a lot of people, they haven't even seen the job description. Oh, we have a job description around here. Where's that? And point is, we better be clear about that first, and then we get the people together. Say, here's the job description. How can we change this? What do we need? And then we start looking at those qualities and skill sets that we want to have in that person that we hire. I think it does a lot to help people re-examine a position they're looking to hire for or maybe
Yeah.
create, and
Mhm.
it allows them to say, geez, some of these things aren't relevant anymore, or here's some
Right.
things that need to be relevant. So it gives them a chance to do a little bit of inventory, so to speak, of the type of uh, position they're actually looking to fill.
And these positions are changing so quickly too because of AI and other things. And, maybe this person shouldn't be doing this particular task anymore.
Hmm.
It should be in a
Hmm.
different department. I mean, I guess there's a lot of good things that can come out of really taking a solid look at what
Hmm.
you're staffing for.
Absolutely.
So, why don't you tell me, can you provide an example of a situation where you were doing job profiling initiative within a company? Can you give us a little bit of background, real briefly?
Well, I'll give you one example of an organization. They had a uh, sales manager. It was a technical tech company, and what happened was now she was hired sometime prior, like a couple of years before, and it was just not working out. For some reason, she just wasn't getting the respect that from their companies that they're providing these services for, and she just felt like she wasn't accepted. So she quit. Just decided it wasn't the right job for her. So the company that was going to replace her. Uh, Now, this is a situation where they didn't do a job profile. They just went ahead and hired somebody. They said, "No, we've already got somebody in mind," and they just went ahead and hired. Now, that was probably a few months back. I don't know exactly how it panned out, but again, when you're looking to replace somebody and you don't take the time to do the due diligence, so to speak, it can create some issues. Now, we'll see what happens. Because many times when you're just filling holes or you're hiring somebody, there's got to be a reason why that person's going to want to stay at your organization, and there's got to be some reasons why the organizations want to going to keep that person. So
Right.
in that case, that's an example where they didn't use a job profile. In terms of using a job profile, let's give you one. Another example was where an individual, a company, was looking to hire a replacement for somebody. Uh, like it was just a couple steps down from the owner of the company, and what had happened before is the owner would do the hiring, and essentially what it turned out to be in the previous hire, the gentleman that they hired was pretty much a good golfer, and the owner was looking for somebody golfing buddy, right? So that did not work out. So by bringing in the job benchmarking or the job profiling approach, we were able to identify the right candidates to choose from, and they hired somebody that wasn't a good golfer, right? but he could do the job description. He met all the requirements and had the skill sets and the values that were necessary for that. And he's been working great ever since. So there wouldn't have been the CEO's first choice, but by using a system like this, it it created the right solution.
Wow, that's a great example. Yeah. Don't hire for golfing skills unless
We do
it's
that.
a
Many times people want to hire people that are a lot like them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or, we have common interests. Oh, that's great. You went to such and
Yep.
such school. Great. You got to be a good guy. You came from my old neighborhood. Okay. Or my college again. See, this is where we get in trouble is we don't objectively look at the position or the person that we're hiring for. And as a result, we end up hiring someone that maybe we shouldn't have hired.
Yeah, for sure. I've been in many companies like that where they just hired friends and family and yikes. Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Nobody knew how to do anything. Thank God for the rest of us, right?
That's right.
Oh my. Real quick, like, so how does this, overall, what are some of the benefits to the organizational culture, and employee engagement when you take this approach, a thoughtful approach?
Well, it's and one of the profiles we use, one of the assessment tools we use, there's a wheel, and on the wheel it shows you all the different types of behavioral styles, and or on another wheel we'll use where it shows you all the motivations that
Mhm.
would allow a person to be uh, right for the job. That they go in different sections of the wheel. Now, the idea is if you do it right, your wheels are completely full. Each quadrant or each section of the wheel is filled with the right people to with the right skill sets or with the right behaviors or the right
Mhm.
motivators that keep them motivated on the job. So the benefit of that overall is to have a balanced team. And it's like a bicycle wheel. If all the spokes are in place in the right places, it's the wheel's going to roll uh, very evenly
Yeah.
balanced as it goes down the road. So it's the same thing with your organization. If you had you have the right people in the right positions, they're gonna complement each other, and as a result, they're going to be doing a really great job of running your company.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, it's been really interesting to learn more about this job profiling. And when you're looking at this, one final question I have for you is,
Mhm.
how does this kind of balance things out between smaller organizations that are using it and the larger organizations? How does this help them be
Yeah,
more
that's a great,
competitive?
great question. So, and that's just it. A small company can do it as a large company can do it. So it's just a matter of having that wherewithal to do the planning, use the instrument, get that type of feedback from your team that are best qualified to identify those skill sets and qualities. And a small company can be very competitive with a large company when it comes to attracting and keeping the right people if they use a skill or use a tool like this. So it can be a very
Where
a
does this
leveler.
where does this kinda emanate from? I mean, does this have to start with the HR? I mean, is this the people who have to take the leadership role with doing the job profiling?
I think
Is
they need to be involved. They definitely
Okay.
need to be part of whoever's going to make that decision to uh, finance something like this.
Mhm.
They definitely need to be in the room to be part of that decision making process. But definitely HR plays a major role in this. Yes,
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to us about this today, this really, really important topic. And if you could look back on just, one or two things when it comes to job profiling, what's your one piece of advice that you would offer up?
I'd say take the time to identify the right skill sets and qualities by getting the right people in the room to create that list to go from. If you start there, you're going to be in a much better place to get the kind of a job profile or job benchmark created.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today.
My pleasure.
Tom Borg, founder and president of Tom Borg Consulting. Thanks again for another wonderful interview with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara.
Absolutely. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneur.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.